The long and short of it is real simple. The bills are both deserving of a quick death in the General Assembly. And that's the conclusion of the evaluation. The reason for that is threefold. Number one, the bills, in my judgment, are nothing but an excuse to discriminate. And I'll go into that a little more in just a minute. Number two, the bills have the potential to provide the opportunity for those that use them to permit someone or everyone who uses them to be a law unto themselves. To say, I'm not going to follow any given law because it is against my religion. And the opportunity to use this as a religious excuse is so broad, it's almost impossible to limit. And I think that is just has the potential to be a disaster. And third, the uncertainty that these bills, if enacted into law, bring about are limitless for people like policemen, nurses, hospital administrators, teachers, anyone who has any contact with the law has the potential to face these bills when they're brought up by a parent who says, I don't want my child vaccinated because it's against my religion. I don't want this course taught to my child because it's against my religion. Now, all of those things you might say, well, that can be handled in the courts. That's not where the problem necessarily may arise. Somebody's got to make a decision right on the firing line immediately. And I think it may take decades to sort all this out by people like policemen and nurses and hospital administrators, and that is going to be extraordinarily difficult to resolve. But above all, this bill, in my judgment, is nothing but an excuse to discriminate. And I would ask you this, why is the bill needed if not for the purpose of discriminating? To tell a gay couple you can't have a marriage license, or to tell someone, an interfaith couple, you can't have this apartment. Why else do you need it? We've got probably as strong religious freedom provisions in our state constitution as exist in the United States. What do you need it for? So when I did the analysis with the very able help of my young associate Josh Moore, there's no question we don't need these bills. And I'm no bleeding heart liberal. I'll tell you right up front. But I don't think we need these, and I think it would be a black eye for my home state. We're not going to attract the young people that we need to keep Georgia at the very top, drawing business, new businesses into this state by enacting this kind of legislation. And I don't want us falling behind. I'm 73 years old, and I have benefited greatly. I was born in a farmhouse with no utilities, and I am a product of people like Carl Sanders, who kept us from sliding behind like has happened in so many other states. And I don't want it happening in Georgia because we enact foolish legislation like this. And I'll take your questions.
Mr. Bowers, you said the legislation would open the door to discrimination, but your track record as Attorney General included firing a lesbian because of her sexual orientation. How do you reconcile your views on this bill today with some of your history as Attorney General?
Well, I'd say two things. Number one, I hope, but I'll leave it to others to judge, that what I did was enforce the law. Not discriminate, but enforce the law. And I will tell you right up front, I've changed some. There's no question. I'm 73, but I hadn't stopped learning and changing. But I hope more than anything else that my record will be for others to judge, not me. I'm not going to stand up here and judge myself. I'm just not going to do it. I'll let you do that. But I hope it will be said he enforced the law as best he knew how. That's all I can tell you. Okay?
You said you've changed some. What do you mean? Your thoughts on gay couples or relationships?
On everything, to include that. Yes, I've changed some. I'm not as the same that I was 30 years ago. Absolutely not. I'm a much nicer guy than I used to be. I hope I am anyway. I'm not sure my wife believes that, but I hope I am.
I mean, supporters of these bills are going to say you're a hired gun, you were
Well,
brought in by Georgia
They
Equality.
can say anything they want to. All I can tell you is on this, the analysis we did is primarily a legal one. And I defy any one of them that wants to take us on to show me how this bill does not discriminate, number one. Number two, how this bill does not create all kinds of opportunities for folks to say, wait a minute, the law doesn't apply to me, and I'm going to get out of it because of my religious belief. However wild the religious belief may be, and the courts can't look behind how wild it is, only how sincerely held it is. And three, that this isn't going to create absolute chaos for people like policemen and nurses and teachers. I defy them to show me where we're wrong.
Mr. Bowers.
So they can criticize me all they want to. But look, I have made buku mistakes in 73 years. But I'm going to let other folks judge it. I'm not up here justifying myself. I'm just telling you this legislation is a disaster for my home state. And I hate to see it passed.
Is there anything that sponsors can write in to make this not exist?
No, nothing.
There's no value.
Maybe the plan of salvation. That would be about all. Nothing. Yes, sir.
Some high-placed business executives from the Georgia Chamber, Metro Chamber, they had some strong things to say about this legislation last year in opposition to it. Same thing you talked about, the ability to
I
attract
hadn't talked to
business.
one of them.
Well, my question is, because they've been pretty silent this session so far, completely silent. They haven't stepped up at all. Should they step up and help fight this?
Hell yes, absolutely. But they were silent about the cheating scandal.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't step up and talk about that. All it takes for people, for evil to triumph, is for good men to say nothing. Yes, I am being paid. No, make no mistake about it. I don't work for free. I used to when I was working for the government. I don't now. But I feel very strongly about this. And let me tell you why. Look at, you'll get a copy directly, look at the last couple of paragraphs. In 1966, I saw the play, A Man for All Seasons, and it stuck with me. I was a young captain in the Air Force, and I saw that play by Thomas Bold, and it was about the rule of law. And I really believe in the rule of law. And that's what this is about. It's not about gay marriage. It's not about religious freedom. It is about the rule of law. That's what this is about. And I do really, really feel strongly about that. And when I was approached about this and I read this bill, I said, this is a disaster. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out this is a disaster. And that's why I took the assignment. I was glad to get paid for it.
Mr. Bowers, one of the sponsors of the Senate bill, Josh McCune, says he wrote it with the federal law in mind, that he used that as the basis.
That doesn't
for his
make a
law.
hoot. The federal law is no paragon of virtue itself.
Do we need the federal law anymore?
I'm not sure. I wasn't paid to look at that, but look, the federal law allows for a great deal of discrimination, and I'm not really sure that's a good idea, but I didn't look at that.
You talked about how this might impact young people moving to Georgia, future businesses. Could you elaborate about what might happen if this were to pass in terms of the economic health of our state?
I think it would send a signal to a lot of bright young people, this is not the place to come. This is a place that is closing its mind and its doors to bright young people who might otherwise come here, because we don't necessarily want gay people to come to Georgia. And there are a lot of bright gay people that we need to come here and work here. And that's just dumb, plain dumb.
Is there a problem with government intrusion on religious freedoms?
I beg your pardon?
Is there a problem right now with any government intrusion on religious
I'm sure there is. Of course there is. But there are protections in existence right now. We don't need this bill. We've got all kind of protections. What this does is this allows every parent to say, I'm going to beat the hell out of my kid in the name of religious freedom. We don't need that. We've got plenty of protection right now that allows people to discipline their children without beating the hell out of them in the name of religious freedom.
Mr. Bowers, have you heard from Sam Teasley, Josh McCune, or any other
I hadn't heard from any of them.
Republicans?
They don't communicate with me.
Is this bill unconstitutional? Does it violate, in your opinion, the federal constitution or the Georgia constitution?
I didn't look at that, Robin,
Okay.
and I'm not sure. Now, I'll tell you this. The Georgia Constitution, insofar as it deals with religious freedom, has a couple of provisions, one of which it butts right up against. And I'm not sure how the Georgia Supreme Court would look at this paragraph that talks about the exercise of religious freedom up to the point of licentiousness and practices inconsistent with peace and safety of the state. I don't know how that would impact some of the things that might otherwise be authorized by this bill. I just don't know what might happen with that, because religious freedom under the state constitution, thank you, has not been interpreted in Georgia in a substantive way since 1943, when the Supreme Court handled a case dealing with a municipal ordinance out of Moultrie that involved magazines being sold on the street during wartime, and it interfered with servicemen and construction going on at an air base in Moultrie on the weekends. And they struck down an ordinance. I don't know what would happen.
Yeah.
But Georgia's religious freedom provisions are very different from the First Amendment.
Okay. What kind of position, if this law were to pass, does it put the Attorney General in? I mean, you were in a
Well, the
position...
Attorney General and I hadn't been getting along too well recently, so
I mean, is he constrained to basically try to enforce the law at that point?
I don't know. I'm not going to speak for the Attorney General.
Okay.
The Attorney General and I have a very different view of what his job is.
If you were Attorney General, I know, and this is hypothetical, if you were Attorney General and this law passed, what would you have to do in this situation?
Well, I hope I would challenge it right out of the box.
Okay.
I can't speak for the current Attorney General.
Can you elaborate on how your views may have changed as far as LGBT issues and marriage? Or
No, I won't, because I'm not sure myself, but I know they've changed. I'm not of the same opinion on a lot of things that I was when I was 43 that I am now that I'm 73. I just know I've changed. And I hope for the better, but I'm going to have to let other folks determine that.
What's led to that change?
Huh?
What's led to that change, if you can specify?
Say again?
What's led to that change in opinion?
I didn't hear you. I got hearing aids. You
Sorry.
better talk up.
What has led to that change in opinion on LGBT issues? I guess you can't specify what has changed, but I mean, what has led to that change? Did you know people, gay people personally?
Well, what has led to the change?
Mhm.
Having 8 grandchildren, getting older, losing a step or two, trying more cases, having a bunch of partners that have impacted on me, or 1 or 2 of them are in this room, and learning more, being married a lot longer, 52 years now, all of those things. Just the things that change people. I can't tell you all that. I don't know. But I know I've changed. My secretary's right over there. She's been with me for 12 years, and she's seen change. I can't tell you all that. I don't know. But I know I'm different.
The 2 examples.
I'm not as mean as I used to be. I know that.
The 2 examples that you used, one of them being a parent objecting to a study program in school. What would you say to your kids if they said, hey, Pops, my 6-year-old came home and they want to teach them sex ed. I want to object to that. You say that's not really allowed.
Well, I would say, look, you better think twice before you do that, because just summarily saying no to something like that may not be the smartest thing